All right, so I want to welcome you to the general information session held by RTPC every year before April 1st. Also with me online are two important members of the committee, Carol DeMambro, who's an associate professor in interdisciplinary studies, is our live text guru, and any of you who've worked with Carol know she's amazing. And so if you're going to go up for promotion or tenure at some point, she's going to be the person that you'll become very closely allied with if you have questions. The other person on with us also from the committee is Janelle Leone, and she has been a member of the committee for, I think, 2 years, and she's very helpful and very knowledgeable as well. And Carol and Janelle are just going to hop in whenever they have things that they can add. Now, our audience is quite diverse. We have colleagues who are going up for promotion to full professor or thinking about it. We have colleagues who are going up for promotion in tenure on tenure track positions. We have professors of practice who are thinking about going up. We have people about ready to do their third-year reviews, and we have some eager beavers who are really just interested in having more information. So this is going to be very broad. For those of you who are going to be applicants in the 2021 academic year, and I don't know who will be chair yet, we'll have an informational meeting for you on May 12th. And at that time, we'll go through all the nitty-gritty things that you probably have questions about. And once today's meeting is over, I have a meeting after this with the executive committee, but once that is over, I will send you a copy of the updated, often called RTPC Manual, which is the Tenure and Promotion Guidelines Manual. So let me just begin. This is basically what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to cover who's on RTPC, how does it work, the materials, eligibility, criteria, timeline, because the dates become really important, and if you're going to apply, the things that you need to do, and then I'll entertain questions. I'm on a bit of a timeline because I have a meeting at 2 o'clock, and I've set my alarm for 1:55, so I'm hoping to keep us on time. So the first thing I want to tell you is that the membership has 7 faculty members, but we can add another faculty member if we have a huge number going up, and we have done that in the past. And the provost is ex officio. So she basically only attends the sessions where we talk about candidates, and she doesn't talk. She listens to our conversation and our deliberations, and then later she comes back and tells us her recommendations to the president. So currently the people on the committee are Melody Davis, Carol DeMambro, Margot Alacqua, Tamika Gillum, Janelle Leone, and Nancy Michaela. And those are the stars. Their terms end this year. Okay, and Gormley's there too. I guess you can't see it. At least I can't see it on my end because I have all your pictures up. So the purpose and the function and the procedures manual. There are 2 things you need to really consult very carefully. The first thing is the manual, which has been sent to FAC, and we have been given permission to upload it. I'm going to be working with Erica DiCarlo to do that. I got an email back from Teresa, the provost, and she said that we're all set and that can be sent out to you. So I will send that to everyone today. Although if you're not going up right away, it's probably more information that you want. It's a bit like someone saying, what's the time? And then me describing how to make a clock or a watch. It's probably a little more information than you need. But besides the manual for promotion and tenure guidelines, you want to look very carefully at the Faculty Handbook. This is not up there yet, but basically you're going to go to Curriculum Shared Files, RTPC, and the manual. I haven't been given permission yet to upload it. It has been revised. I'm going to send it to you today, as I said, and it will be in the shared files for everyone thereafter. The manual tends to be revised every year or 2 by RTCP, and the reason we revise it is for clarity. If there are things that we have found that candidates seemed unclear about, or that we got a lot of questions about, or that just in looking at the portfolios that people put together, we thought we needed to be clearer, we try to make those changes in that manual. And the manual is something that you should print out, read through, highlight, make your questions. We'll go over it in detail in May for those of you who actually are applicants for this year. And it'll be an online session again. All right, so eligibility is very straightforward. Eligibility for tenure and or promotion is determined by the dean and the chair, and it depends on your rank, how long you've been there. If you are eligible, you received a letter before March 1st indicating that you were eligible. And then if you look in the handbook, the 9.13.8.1 and 9.13.7.1 talk about eligibility for both tenure track faculty and professors of practice. And if you read it very carefully, when you start looking under the various categories, you will see there are some slight differences in terms of scholarship and professional development. I'll talk about that as we go through. So there are specific credentials that are required in the Faculty Handbook. And again, I'll send you this PowerPoint too, so you can refer back to it because you might want to. If you have no life and something you need to do on a Friday night, you can go through it several times and have a good time. But the Faculty Handbook lists the credentials and the experience that you have to have in terms of the number of years and what's required. So you can go from instructor to assistant professor to associate, or associate to full professor. And on occasion, the committee does have someone who is hired at an associate professor level who's not yet tenured. And so then they would go up for both tenure, and they could choose whether or not to go up for promotion to full professor. But the criteria by rank are all in the handbook, and so you should familiarize yourself with that. But if you're on here, you probably are pretty clear about when you're eligible to go up and be considered. So it's a 10-month process. You need to give your letter of intent in by April 15th. And that will go to the provost's hand so that she knows that you're going to do that, and she will send it to me. And I don't know if I'll be chair next year or someone else will be, but I will hand all that information off to the next person if it's not me. The next big date, you know that we're having a workshop on the 12th of May. I made it the 12th, 9 o'clock in the morning. I know, which is hard for some of you who are not on the East Coast, but I figure you'll cope if you've been teaching online. I made it May 12th because May College is the 13th and 14th, and well, I don't know whether or not May College will occur. I didn't want to double schedule anything. So right now you can get that on your calendar and be ready. So by the 1st of June, and I didn't change the date here, and I should have. I will change that before I send it to you. You can have a maximum of 10 letters of people who write for you in support of your application. And I would give you a suggestion that you think across those categories that you have to talk about and really address: teaching and advising, professional development and scholarship, and service. And so you might make a little grid. It's just my suggestion. You don't have to do it. And just make sure that you've got people writing to each category, because sometimes we'll have a candidate come up and they may have had a leadership position on a committee, but there's no one who writes about that, and we don't have any information on that. So you want to think carefully about that. But the date that is hard and fast and really important for those of you who are going up for tenure is you have to give a list of potential reviewers. And the list should be 5 to 10 people. The more the better, because sometimes people are busy in the summer or decline to review your portfolio. And in the fall, the portfolio portion, just the scholarship portion, will be sent to the 2 people who agree to review your materials by the provost's office, and they'll get a copy of the appropriate pages of the Faculty Handbook, and they'll get a copy of the Boyer model, which is, of course, what we all are under. And then the other date that you want to be thinking about over the summer is preparing your e-portfolio. And I will tell you right up front, it's more work than you think, and you need to be really orderly about it. But that's due by 5 p.m. on the first day of classes. And I think I looked up the first day of classes is August 27th. So by 5 p.m. on August 27th. Now, obviously, if you're type A personality like me, or if you're a worrywart, and I'm one of those too, you might want to do it earlier just to make sure everything's there and in order. And just, send the chair an email, and you'll know who the chair is by the end of May. And we'll get that out to you. But so you have some dates coming up quickly in June. June 1st for the list of external reviewers, people you think could review your credentials. They should not be people you've done work with. They should not be friends, obviously not relatives, okay, that kind of thing. And then by September 15th, letters of support need to be received. And if your letters of support, the provost's office will let you know who has written letters of support for you, so you have time in August, if they haven't written, to get back in touch with them, because we all have people who say, oh yes, I'll do that, and then it gets on the back burner and doesn't get done. So you will get a reminder on that. And then by the middle of September, the 15th, Carol DeMambro will make sure that just that portion of your portfolio is created for the external reviewer, and then they send their reviews back to us. And thereafter, excuse me, the chairs give us, I'm going to see if I can get these out of the way so I don't see. The chairs will give us their recommendation by the 15th, and the dean by November 1st, and by the end of January, RTCP will make its final recommendations. And the provost has to have hers done by the, I think it's the 15th of February, but when I looked online, I think in 21, the 17th is the first business day. So what happens with RTCP is that every single person on the committee reads all of your materials. And one person on the committee takes a leadership role in presenting it to the group, and then we discuss them. I know last year we worked past the fall break right into December. So it's a very busy time for the committee, and you want to make sure that in your own portfolio, when you're putting it together, that you make it as clear as possible for the committee. So it's fairly long, I don't know why it's not going. Why isn't that going? Okay, and then the decision by the president. So let me talk about RTCP. So once you have turned everything in the first day of classes, access will be granted to all RTCP members. And everyone will read the portfolio and discuss it. And during the discussion of your portfolio, the provost is present. Understand, she's not a participant, does not answer questions, does not add content. It's just what's in your portfolio. And we can't consider anything at all that's not in your portfolio. And we work on a consensus model, and we vote yes or no. And then the facilitator, the person who's presented, led us in our discussion on your portfolio, summarizes the discussion and the vote in a memo, which will eventually be uploaded into your portfolio. There are some materials that are uploaded by the RTPC, and Carol DeMambro, as our live text guru and liaison, will be the person who does that. And so if you're going to apply, you have to submit your letter of intent to apply. You have to have your list of supporters, and if you're going up for tenure, your list of potential reviewers, and then you have to develop your application and portfolio. So I'm going to talk a little bit about portfolio presentation and responsibilities of everyone involved. So here is the thing you really need to focus on. You have to make your case. I don't make your case. The facilitator doesn't make your case. Your chair doesn't make your case. Your dean doesn't make your case. You really have to talk about meeting sustained excellence criteria in the areas of teaching and advising, scholarship and professional development, and service and professional contributions and leaderships. So it needs to be well written, that goes without saying, and it needs to be well organized. I'm not going to tell you horror stories, but there have been times when it's been very difficult to find materials that are in the portfolio because the candidate didn't organize them well. It is to your benefit, and it helps the committee too, if you are just very orderly in how you're doing it. And you'll find in the manual that there are real descriptions of everything you're supposed to have. And while you may say to yourself, well, gee, I'd rather do a video, or I'd rather dance, or I'd rather do whatever. Please follow the format, because we're going to be looking for specific materials. For example, if it says that you do have to include all of your AFRs and all of your PDPs for the last 5 years, if you just put one in, we're left wondering, where are the others? Were there issues? Did the person forget? It's a conundrum for us, and we have to really wrestle with that. So let me talk a little bit about your 4 areas that you need to write about. The first one is an overall self-evaluation, and that's really going to be, I think of it as an umbrella writing across all 3 areas. I know for myself, when I did my own portfolio, I did the 3 sections first and then wrote that other one. It made more sense to me. But you need to have an overall summary self-evaluation limited to 5 pages. You need to talk about teaching and advising, scholarship and professional development, and service and leadership. And each of those, your list limited to 5 pages. So you have 20 pages, but you can't say, okay, I'm going to borrow a page from teaching and scholarship and put it, or teaching and advising and put it under scholarship. You're limited to 5 for each section. So you really want to work on that and be very clear in your writing, because you make the argument, you make the case, and we go through it. So under teaching and advising, here's what we're looking for, kinds of things that you might want to include. Your philosophy of teaching. What have you done in the curriculum? Have you used a lot of technology? What are your reflection? I would tell you in teaching, you're really going to want to take a look at all of your SALT scores and try to put them in some kind of Excel sheet or something that makes sense to you to analyze them so that we can see that you've really been reflective. And then what kind of changes have you made based on your experiences and on the feedback that you've gotten? You need to include the syllabi and all AFRs and PDPs. And you can see that I've made all in red. And the reason for that is that we have too often found people who don't include every year, or include the AFR and not the PDPs, or alternate or mislabel. So be very careful about that. And they should have the chair's evaluation. Now, we do know that there are a few thorny issues that some people encounter. There are on occasion a chair who won't write an evaluation. I don't actually know how that happens, but we've seen that. So if your chair didn't write an evaluation, you simply indicate that. You need to have your chair or peer evaluations. You need to have 6 for people going up for tenure. And some of you may say, oh, wait, I've been teaching a long time. I haven't had a peer evaluation in a long time. Well, I would tell you, invite a colleague to one of your online classes that you're teaching in this COVID-19 post-world, and have them write an evaluation of your online work. You need to include your student evaluations, and again, summary charts are really helpful. Those are the SALT scores with analyses making sense. And we know that return rates on some courses are low. What you have is what you have. You can't make new things up. Deal with it. But those are the kinds of things that we're looking for and expect under the teaching and advising category. Janelle or Carol, do you want to add anything there? I guess not. All right. So the next section that you need to write on is Yes, go ahead.
I think Carol was trying to talk, but I don't know if her...
I didn't hear her. Go ahead, Carol. Carol, I think you're muted on your end.
Yeah.
Say something, Carol.
I pushed speaker instead of mute.
Okay. All right.
So you should be able to hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. The only thing I said was the idea of reflection. You emphasized it, Kay, but it's just so important, because this is your only opportunity to talk to us. And if you don't do the reflection, we're not going to do it based on what you put in the portfolio.
Right. I mean, I think the thing you should really write to us as colleagues on RTPC. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you've done. We want to know how you've changed, how you've evolved. I would say be pretty candid. You know, for example, I'm trying to think of a good example. My scores, I tend to be a little lower in returning assignments to students, but every assignment I get back within a week. So yes, I know they like it back in 10 minutes. Life doesn't work like that, right? So that might be something that I would talk about, or what I've done to try to address that. But reflection is really important. So if there's an area that you are consistently weak in, you need to address that. Or maybe there are areas that you've really grown in and changed over time, and that would be something to think about. But reflection, which is highlighted there, is key. Thank you, Carol.
Okay, I would also just add that if there is something missing from your portfolio through, a circumstance that might not have been under your control, or, a chair didn't sign or didn't give you something back, I would just encourage applicants to explain to the committee why it's missing, because like Kay said, otherwise we're left wondering if it was intentionally left out. And if the applicant just gives a clear explanation as to why this document or several documents are missing, then we can understand, it in a certain context.
Yes, that's very good advice. So just be up front, be forward. Understand that we are hoping that everyone is successful, but you have to make the case for yourself. So the second piece is scholarship and professional development. Again, you have 5 pages. You should see the handbook appendix 5, which will have the Boyer model, and you should talk about discovery, integration, application, and or teaching. It is unlikely that some will, but it is unlikely that every candidate will talk about every area. So you need to read the Boyer model, think about how that reflects the kind of work that you've done. Some of you, for example, will probably have traditional publications and refereed journals. Some of you will have presentations. Some of you may have reports. There are any number of things that could go under there. And so you look at the handbook, which will talk about dissemination. And obviously the expectations for associate professor are different than the expectations for full professor. I know that people always say, well, how many articles, how many publications do I have to have? We don't look at it that way. You have to make the argument. But some programs and some schools have a specific number of publications. So you should talk to your dean and see if there's anything there. And if you think it's not clear, then it's a perfect opportunity this spring to have a conversation among your colleagues in your department and or your school about what's going to count as scholarship. I know, for example, Pete Stapleton in Education, who's the chair of the program that I'm in, has taken the categories of teaching and advising, scholarship, and service. We really looked at scholarship and said, okay, what do we expect for professors of practice? What do we expect for tenured track faculty members? And try to lay it out for people so it's clear. The provost has taken our concern about this to the chairs, for example, we were hoping that every school might have one, but programs are very different. I know management, for example, Scott, I think you're in management. Management has a clear expectation. I know someone was coming from OT, and they had something written. So you'll really need to check on what's available there. But in general, look at the Boyer model and make your argument as clearly as possible. And one of the things that you're going to do within your portfolio is you're going to have a CV, your curriculum vitae. And whatever style you use, in my case it would be APA and education, you want to make sure that you are consistent and that you are clear. You don't put in an article, for example, that has been submitted as if it's published. If you have one that's in press, then you write in press. It needs to be really clear to us. If you present, for example, let's say every year you present something in September to some group, that doesn't count for the last 5 years as 5 presentations if it's the same presentation. So you would just list the presentation in the years that you did it. So you're going to have to be very clear there. That's the part that for us as a committee is sometimes problematic. We are reading outside our areas of expertise when we divide up the candidates and ask someone to facilitate. One of the first things we do is we say, who don't you know? So that we're reading with a blind, fresh eye. So for example, if my colleague who has the office next door to me is up for promotion and I have not recused myself at the departmental level and I'm just on RTPC, I could never present that person as a candidate because I know them so well. And so that's someone else who takes that lead. So the scholarship and professional development is something you'll want to spend some time on. And then the service and professional contributions in leadership, again, you have 5 pages. you want to be thinking about what have you done as a faculty member in the department, what have you done for the institution, what are the things that you've worked on, what have you done in professional organizations. Some of you have been very active with students, some of you have worked in community organizations. But let me give you an example of something that I would think might be interesting, but I probably wouldn't put it under service. If I were, my husband teaches skiing to students with disabilities at Double H Ranch in Lake Luzerne. And years ago, I used to make cookies all the time for them to take up. Well, yes. Do I think that's service? I think it's nice for children to have cookies. They don't allow it anymore. But I wouldn't put that down as service because that's just something that I elected to do, right? If I give money every year to the Heart Association, well, I think that's a wonderful thing that you do that, but it doesn't really go under service. So again, you'll find discussions about that and about both of those areas in the RTPC Manual and in the handbook. Carol and Janelle, do you want to hop in?
I actually did want to hop in on letter B.
Please.
So we have professional accomplishment in that when you're looking at live text. And I think that's a very important area for anybody who's coming up as a POP, because the way scholarship is looked at for a POP is slightly different for somebody who's coming up for tenure or promotion. So I want to make sure that if you're coming up as a POP, that you know that you're talking about more than just, publications or something like that. You're also talking, let's say somebody has a practice. That's something a POP would definitely want to include. I might include it as well because I'm a practitioner in restorative justice, but it doesn't have the same context as it does somebody who's a POP, if that makes sense.
Right. So again, it's what you write to the committee. It's how you explain it to us about what you're doing. That becomes really important. Janelle, did you want to add anything on either of those areas?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
I think you covered it nicely.
Thank you. And then, of course, the external review. And you don't have anything to do with that. You will never see what the people who are external reviewers have written, because it's like a blind review for a refereed journal. But the committee will summarize what the two reviewers said, and you will receive a copy of that. So there are other people involved. The chair. The chair is the person who's supposed to mentor you, whether you're seeking tenure or promotion. And they will seek a review of your portfolio and input from tenured member or professors of practice with senior rank, and that's defined as 6 years of service or more. And what the chair does is the chair pulls together from all that information. It talks about how they met, that kind of thing, how they approached it, and write a departmental chair's recommendation that reflects the departmental sense to RTPC. And then following that, that's uploaded into the portfolio, and Carol again does that as our live text guru. And then the dean from your particular area reviews the portfolio on the external reviews and makes an evaluation recommendation, which is again uploaded. Now, I know it makes you anxious as you wait, wondering what people have said that you don't have access to, but by November 15th, you'll be able to read the summary of the external reviewers, the chair's evaluation, and the dean's evaluation. And then you may respond to any of that or the letters of support to RTPC if you think that there was something that doesn't quite reflect what happened. You certainly could do that. By all means, you're not required to do it. It's up to you if you think that there's something that would be helpful for the committee, but you cannot add new information in terms of, let's say you had 4 articles that were submitted and that was in the beginning of your portfolio, and now it's November and 2 of them have been accepted. That's we only do up to and including, and then your letter of response to materials that are in there. So then the provost's responsibility will be to get reviewers to go over your application if you're going for tenured from the annotated list that you provided her. She sometimes does have the deans contact those reviewers. It depends on how many candidates are going up, whether or not she does that. And then finally, the president reviews the recommendations of RTPC and the provost, and again goes through your portfolio, and President Ames makes the final institutional decision. So those are the responsibilities. So here are the dates.
Hey, can I just jump in for 1 second?
Of course.
I just wanted to just remind everyone that the members of RTPC, we can't discuss anyone's portfolio outside of the committee. So I think most of us would just ask, since everyone kind of knows who's on RTP, we can't discuss what is being discussed about your particular portfolio, and it just kind of puts us in an awkward position sometimes if people approach us and ask, sort of the status of things. So I would just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you should know too is that as chair of RTPC, when someone asks me a question, I tend to send a blind copy of the response to, if I'm unsure of the response, obviously I check with the committee and we discuss it. But if it's just something that's pretty clear to me and just not clear to the candidate, I will respond to the candidate in a blind copy with everyone, so that Harry isn't getting more information than Tim, that kind of thing. I keep a copy of all emails that I receive, and so that there's just no question about that. I blind copy them in my computer in a folder, so that there's just no question. We want to be as clear and as transparent as we can, but it is privileged information. We don't discuss it, even from 1 year of RTPC to the next. If we've had a case that we really wrestled with, it was very difficult for us to decide, and there were some things that were problematic. On year 2, we can't reference what was done in year 1. Okay, so we're really very careful to make sure that we protect the anonymity of your work, and we try to be very, I would say, very careful in our deliberations to really take a look at whether the person has made a clear argument, to try to find evidence, to look carefully. But sometimes it has appeared to me, and I'm going to say this as a personal statement, it has appeared to me that candidates to give themselves the gift of enough time to really organize their materials in live text. And so we're left trying to figure out, wait a minute, why is this here? Where is that? They said they had this article. I don't see this article. And you feel very unsettled. And it's really the responsibility of you as the candidate to make that as clear as possible.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Cheryl.
So all the information's great, and the way I look at it is I will do each section and each section. Mm-hmm. But what does it look like when you upload it? Are there those sections, or do you collate things together as more like a whole book with a content page? Mm-hmm. My thing is we have all these different separate sections, but how exactly do they get put on live text?
Okay, well, Carol will go through that in May.
Okay, perfect.
And she can work with you, but in essence, you have, think of them as folders. You have sections on, so you'll have a section on scholarship, and that's where you would put your statement on scholarship, and then you would put any materials that support it, copies of journal articles and that kind of thing. For me, because I'm such a type A personality, as I've mentioned about 3 times before, I put them in most recent to last. Not everybody's going to organize it that way, but it needs to be organized in some way that makes sense. So there's a lot of direction that's given to you about what's expected, and it's on live text. You just simply follow. For example, you have to have your first year review and your third year review there if you're going up. Does that answer?
Can I jump in?
Please,
and it wasn't about what Cheryl mentioned, but what Janelle had mentioned earlier about confidentiality and such. One of the things that I found, and I've been on the committee for 7 years, that while people are preparing, they want some help, and they'll go, oh, well, you've been on the committee, what do you think we're looking for? And we would, as committee members, we should not do that, because you're an individual. And I would say the same thing. If you you know somebody who was successful and you say, can I look at your portfolio? The way that person presented the portfolio may not be the best way for you to present the portfolio. So we don't try and say, oh, here's an ideal portfolio, because it's going to differ, I mean, just even by discipline, what people might include or how it might look. And so, yes, Cheryl, when I meet on the 12th, I'll go through a lot of detail, which is content is, we're not looking at content, we're looking at structure and helping you understand what the structure should look like. And then you're putting in, well, how does that relate to me?
Perfect.
If that helps.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.
All right, so here are the dates. The first thing is done. We've held this informational session. You know that by the 15th of April, you've got to notify the department chair and RTPC chair and the provost that you intend to apply for tenure and or promotion. And then we're going to have that meeting with candidates for the 2021 academic year on Wednesday, the 12th, and I've scheduled it from 9 to 12. We'll take a break in between. Most years it's taken us a little over a couple of hours to go through everything and to answer all questions. And then in June 1st, again, the deadline of having the annotated potential external reviewers. And then June 15th, you want to let the provost know the 10 individuals that you're going to request to write a letter of support for you. And then by 5 p.m. on the 27th of August, it's out of your hands. You can just not think about it for a while. And I'm wondering now, I'm happy to answer any individual questions. So let me just kind of go down through. Daniel, do you have any questions? You may not still be here.
Yes. For a full professor, the first year and third year review don't work.
Right, you don't need them.
Okay, that's one question. The other one is uploading of syllabi. Is it all syllabi the past 6 years? If I teach like 6 courses, 6 times 6, 36 syllabi?
That may be it. If your syllabi is exactly the same, let's say from fall to spring semester, then perhaps you don't need one. You can say it's for that academic year. But if there's been changes, I know, for example, one of the things that I always find interesting in looking at syllabi, besides looking to make sure that they have, the required information that the college asks for, I'm always interested to look at the in graduate courses, for example, how recent is the text? Have they changed articles over 6 years? It would seem like you probably would. So I would include them.
Okay. The other one is the PDP AFR. Are they submitted as one document or 2 different documents, 2 different links for the PDP AFR and also the chair's comment on that? One document?
I would do one document with the chair included. And of course, if the chair's, as Janelle said, if the chair's for some reason hasn't evaluated in a particular year, then you just make a note of that.
So
I was going to say, Daniel, as far as putting things in, you may have separate documents. Is that what you were saying? Like your AFR is different than your PDP versus your chair. And then, if you upload those separately, and I'll talk about it on the 12th, you want to make sure you label them clearly. So if you say, this is the AFR from whatever year and the PDP, it's not the number of files as much as we need to see that it, where they are, if that helps. Kay, do you disagree?
Yeah, no, I agree. Myself, I'd probably scan it all together and make it one document because then it's there.
Right.
But you can do that. If you wanted to separate documents, that's fine. We're not that rigid.
So my last question is on the attachments. It seems like there is a 10 link limit or attachment limit.
No,
is it possible to put it in a zip file?
There are no attachment limits, are there, Carol?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there are. So when you're putting it into live text, and Daniel, you know this, that you can only upload 10, and then you have to do another subject that says, okay, continued, and then upload another 10. The problem with zip files is that means that the committee members would have to unzip them.
Right.
So while I think that it would be wonderful, I think that it would be more complicated
Yeah, it's not practical.
as we're trying to review them.
Yeah, don't do zip files. Don't do zip.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, Don, do you have any questions?
Yeah, the only question is if you could go back a slide. Could you redefine what external reviewers and letters of support are? What makes them?
Yeah, the external reviewer is the blind review there are two of them, blind reviewers of your scholarship portion, which Carol makes from your whole portfolio, and that's separated from everything else and sent out to them with the Boyer model and a description of the college and so forth from the provost's office. But
Okay.
your letters of support are the letters you request from people who you think can speak on your behalf. Perhaps
okay.
they are former students, they may be colleagues who worked with you on a committee, they may be someone you have done research with. So 10 individuals that you think can write and address those categories of teaching and advising, scholarship and professional development, and service.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought you said earlier that you didn't want to know them, and I'm like, then that makes it confusing for the support letters. But obviously, the support letters is
Right.
people you know,
Right.
work with, can comment personally, and then the review letters are people that come from similar schools, similar disciplines.
Right. People that you would identify the provost as you think would be good people to potentially review your portfolio.
Yeah, then we intentionally don't know. Yeah.
That
Okay.
you don't know. That's right. That's correct. You have any other questions, Don?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I don't know. Trudy, did you come on and do you have any questions?
Yeah, I did come on, and I'm not ready. I mean, I just got my letter in the spring that I had been approved to be on the tenure track for an assistant professor.
Okay.
So I'm very early in the process, but
No
that
worries.
doesn't mean that I'm not already working on it. So I have a question about the letters. Two questions actually. One about the letters of support. Can they be from colleagues from outside organizations?
Yes.
Like because I'm involved with
Yes.
different nursing organizations.
Yes, of
that
course.
would be
That
aware.
would
Okay.
that would be a good choice, particularly for service, I think.
Okay. All right. And it just went out of my head. Oh, as I remember, because the letter is hanging on my filing cabinet so that I can see it every time I'm at my desk at work. Well, to let me know the clock's ticking. So would I, those who are going up now for this, would it be during my third year, the academic third year review, that I would go up for that? Or is it the third year from the date of the letter? Because I'm into my second year now.
You need to have
of
5
teaching.
years in that rank before you can apply.
Okay. So 5 years in that. Okay.
Okay, so if you were given that, moved to tenure track and given that rank, the clock starts when you're tenure track and rank. Correct, Carol? And Janelle, double check me. I'm sure I'm right.
Okay.
I was going to say the best way to figure that out is to talk to your dean and your chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even better, probably, is the provost writing a quick email and asking, because
Okay.
some people bring in
Mhm.
years.
Credits.
Mhm.
Some people who change from a POP to a tenure track, some of those years as a POP would count. So that's
Okay.
the only thing. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
best that you get it clarified.
Yeah.
The provost's office is the keeper of the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Okay, because I started out as a lecturer last year,
Okay.
and then was moved to the assistant professor
Okay.
tenure track this year. So okay.
Okay, Kate, I don't think you came on. If you're there, do you have any questions? How about Mindy? Did you come? Mindy, are you there? Okay, Pete. Do you have any questions? Okay, how about Cheryl? Did your questions get answered, Cheryl? Do you have more?
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Scott?
No, I don't have a question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Marlene, do you have any questions?
I'm good now. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And I don't know if Leslie came on. Did Leslie come on? How about Sean?
No, thanks.
Okay, so I will send everyone the PowerPoint, and I will send everyone the RTPC Manual for tenure and or promotion guidelines. And if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to say thanks so much for your time. And for those of you who are candidates going up for applicants for promotion and or tenure in 2021, we'll see you on May 12th. Are there any other questions?
I do have one quick question.
Please, Don.
I did my third year review heavily modeled on what I was going to do for the tenure review.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, I'm going to change the statements and stuff. But can I use the same format and everything? I mean, I'm happy with that format.
Yeah, I was going to say, Don, could you repeat what you said? I thought I heard part of it. Are you talking about, like, with your third year review, can you use part of that?
Yeah, I mean, in live text, I have it set up in a way that I really was pretty happy with. And, of course, I'll update all the materials, but the same format and everything's fine. It doesn't have to be reinventing the wheel then, right?
I think I would say to you, Don, you need to follow the framework that we want so that we can find your material. So if we're expecting to see your AFRs, your PDPs in a certain place, and you have them somewhere else, that's very confusing to us. Remember, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages for most candidates.
I've already got it set up that way intentionally. So it's very rigorously following the old rules unless something changed.
I don't think anything changed radically. I think we just tried to clarify in the manual areas where we thought people could have done a better job in the past or where there was some confusion.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
I would also just
go ahead.
How about
I would
Janelle?
also just add, I would just be really mindful of not resubmitting your third year review as your tenure portfolio. In other words, the tenure portfolio is a much more expansive and comprehensive document. And I mean, certainly you'll take stuff that you presented in your third year review and include it in the tenure portfolio, but this is a completely different document. And just the reason why I bring that up is because you have to just remember that the provost would have already also seen your third year review. So she's going to know if you've just sort of cut and pasted word by word. Right, Kay, would you agree with
You
that?
want to be, I'm just beeping, it's 10 of, you want to be very thoughtful about what you're doing. And I would keep your third review separate. We're going to read your third year review and the provost letter. Because that helps us. So if the provost has given you suggestions of things that you might consider doing, the committee will look for evidence that you attempted to address those suggestions.
I think that, Don, if you're asking about structure, I would be glad to look at, what you have to make sure the structure's right. Because I think I understand what you're saying. It's not about content, it's about where things are placed. And so I'd be glad to look at your structure. I can't look at, obviously, content, but to make sure that things are clear about where you're putting them.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Don?
Yep.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for your time. I appreciate it. Stay safe in these COVID-19 days, and hopefully we'll see each other face-to-face at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.